All right, let's take a trip back in time to the 1920s in Luxembourg. Now, we often think of the 20s as a time of jazz, flappers, and prohibition, but what was going on in a tiny country like Luxembourg? Well, quite a lot, actually. To start, Luxembourg's economy in the 1920s was heavily industrial. Think steel, iron, and coal. The country was rich in these resources, and that's what powered its economy. The steel industry was booming, and Luxembourg became one of Europe's top producers of steel. When you're talking about steel, you're talking about a country that's very much plugged into the bigger European market. They were exporting steel products left and right, but to get there, they had to import raw materials, machinery, and fuel. Now, don't get me wrong, agriculture was still important in the countryside, but let's be real, the industries in the cities were where the action was. But here's the kicker. Luxembourg's size and reliance on its bigger neighbors like France, Belgium, and Germany made it a little fragile. So, when the global economy took a nosedive in the late 20s and the Great Depression hit, Luxembourg wasn't immune. There was rising unemployment in certain sectors, especially in industries tied to steel and coal. Now, when it comes to innovation, Luxembourg wasn't exactly known as the hub of cutting-edge technology, but they weren't just sitting around either. The steel industry was constantly improving its production methods, which kept Luxembourg competitive. They also made strides in transportation, better railways, better roads, all of which made it easier to export goods and keep that industrial engine running. By the end of the decade, the financial sector was starting to rise. Luxembourg was slowly building a name for itself as a financial center, though it still had a long way to go before becoming the financial powerhouse we know today. Politically, Luxembourg was a constitutional monarchy, but what's interesting is that in 1919, Grand Duchess Marie Adelaide stepped down, and her sister, Grand Duchess Charlotte, took over. Now Charlotte would go on to be a hugely popular figure, and she ruled through the 20s, bringing a sense of stability to the country. The political climate wasn't a roller coaster ride. Luxembourg had a multi-party system, but the Catholic Party was the dominant force in politics, teaming up with liberal and conservative factions whenever needed. Despite its small size, Luxembourg was walking a tightrope between its powerful neighbors, France, Belgium, and Germany, trying to stay neutral, but also making sure it didn't get caught in the crossfire of rising nationalism and fascism in Europe. On the military side of things, Luxembourg wasn't exactly gearing up for war. In fact, it followed a strict policy of neutrality. Its army wasn't big or fancy. It was really more about defense and making sure things stayed peaceful internally. The military mainly focused on keeping the borders secure and ensuring they could mobilize quickly if something major went down. But let's be honest, Luxembourg knew it couldn't protect itself without its larger neighbors, so it relied heavily on those diplomatic and economic ties. As for the social conditions of the time, let's just say it wasn't all glitz and glamour. The working class, especially those working in the steel mills and mines, faced grueling conditions. Long hours, poor pay, and dangerous work environments. A lot of people lived in poverty, and life for them wasn't easy. However, in the cities, particularly Luxembourg City, a growing middle class was starting to enjoy a better standard of living. Life in rural areas was more traditional, but let's not forget, Luxembourg was still a deeply Catholic country, so religious values played a huge role in shaping daily life. Social unrest wasn't widespread, but it did bubble up occasionally in the form of strikes and protests, usually centered around labor rights and working conditions. Healthcare and welfare were definitely still in development. The government started to implement some basic social welfare programs for the working class, particularly around unemployment and health insurance, but it wasn't like the full-blown systems you'd find in other European countries. The responsibility for social services still leaned heavily on religious and charitable organizations. But the standard of living was actually pretty good in the cities, just not as much in rural areas where life was tougher. So, what about Luxembourg's people? Well, the country was predominantly Luxembourgish, but there were plenty of immigrants who came in search of work. Many came from nearby France, Belgium, and Germany, and they were essential to the development of the country's steel and mining industries. Luxembourg was culturally pretty homogeneous. Most people spoke Luxembourgish, though French and German were commonly used as well. Now, if you're wondering about the big names of the time, let's talk about the movers and shakers. Grand Duchess Charlotte was obviously a huge figure. She was seen as a symbol of stability. Politically, the powerhouse was Emile Reuter, the prime minister. He was instrumental in navigating the country through the economic challenges of the post-war period. As for industry, the leaders of Luxembourg's steel industry were definitely the ones calling the shots. Oh, and don't forget, the rise of the banking and financial sectors brought a whole new group of influential figures to the table. On the crime front, Luxembourg wasn't exactly plagued by criminals roaming the streets. Its small size and tight-knit communities helped keep crime rates low. There was, however, occasional social unrest, especially in the industrial sectors where workers were pushing for better conditions. Luxembourg didn't really have a problem with secret societies or underground movements, but like the rest of Europe, political extremism was starting to creep in, especially as the rise of fascism and communism began to spread. Culturally, Luxembourg in the 1920s had a lot to offer. The country was still heavily influenced by its neighbors, but they kept their own identity, and you could see that in the arts. Luxembourg was receptive to the new artistic movements coming out of Europe, especially modernism. Artists in Luxembourg were influenced by European avant-garde movements, but they also stuck to their roots with a strong tradition in classical music, theater, and literature. The bilingual nature of the country, Luxembourgish, French, and German, meant the literary scene was vibrant and diverse. When it came to religion, Catholicism was the dominant force in Luxembourg. The church had a strong influence on daily life, and religious festivals and processions were big events, especially in rural areas. As for cults and mysticism, there was a bit of interest in spiritualism, as there was across Europe following World War I, but Catholicism remained the bedrock of the country's religious landscape. Let's not forget the rich folklore of Luxembourg. The stories and legends that shaped the culture in rural areas were steeped in mythology. Spirits, elves, and fairies. You even had the legend of Hertogen, the mythical hunter. A lot of these stories were rooted in local traditions and were tied to specific towns or regions. The 1920s weren't all sunshine and roses for Luxembourg, but it was a time of stability, progress, and development. Luxembourg signed the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, which solidified its neutral status, and that neutrality would shape the country's foreign policy for decades. The steel industry kept growing, the financial sector was rising, and Luxembourg was quietly positioning itself to become the financial hub it is today. Finally, let's touch on the stereotypes. Luxembourg was often seen as a small, quiet country, insular, focused on maintaining peace, and not too concerned with international drama. Luxembourgers were known to be hard-working, proud of their traditions, and deeply rooted in their Catholic values. The country's size may have led to perceptions of being a little disconnected from the wider European scene, but in reality, Luxembourg was steadily growing and shaping its own future. So, there you have it. Luxembourg in the 1920s, a small country with big ambitions and a quiet but steady presence in the European landscape. Pretty interesting for a country that many people forget even exists, right? Thanks for tuning in to The World as We Know It and joining me in another chapter of world history. As always, there are more detailed notes in the description, and we welcome any requests or recommendations in the comments section. If you found this video helpful, entertaining, or educational, please consider liking this video and subscribing to support our channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.